How many of you have a calculator on your phone? Yeah, calculators on your phone, most of us. How many would say you've probably used the calculator at some point in the last month? Yeah, it's really handy. We got it out yesterday. We were doing some budgeting stuff, new month, and yeah, at some point it just got beyond us, had to break out the calculator. Now, it's a very simple calculator, right? And I can still remember the day when, I don't know if you've ever done this may blow some of your minds, but if you turn your calculator sideways, have you ever done this? It becomes not a simple calculator anymore. No, now it can do quite advanced things. Way more than most of us ever have to do in our daily lives. But I still remember the first time we went from this very simple calculator to, oh wow, there's a lot more there. And I think that's a great picture of kind of what we're doing. We're going through the Lord's Prayer, and the Lord's Prayer as a whole is a very simple prayer. And yet, for most of us, we've just kind of recited those words over and over again, that some of the strength of what Jesus is really teaching us we miss. And in a way, we need to turn it on its side. And we need to see it for the beauty that's really there. And that's especially true for the line in the Lord's Prayer that we're going to talk about this morning. If you've been with us, we've been starting this new year, the series on prayer. And we've been asking Jesus to teach us to pray, just like his disciples asked him. And in response to Jesus saying, teach us to pray, Jesus gave this model prayer, the Lord's Prayer. And so the last couple weeks we talked about the opening address and the first three requests. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. This prayer starts with its entire focus upward, on God and his glory. And this is sort of our pattern of prayer. That when we come to God, we don't just immediately jump in to our needs. No, our vision first should start with who are we talking to? And that he should be glorified. And then, as we'll see today, then we come to asking for our needs. And so today we're going to look at verse 11. Give us today our daily bread. And again, what we're doing is we're basically turning the calculator on its side and seeing, okay, what's here? And the best way, I think, to come at this is to sort of take it apart and look at some of the different words. Because each word sort of contributes to the significance of what Jesus is telling us here. So let's kind of go one word at a time. Let's start with the word give. Give us today our daily bread. And with each of these, I think it's significant to kind of notice what he doesn't say. He doesn't say, sell us today our daily bread, or lend us our daily bread. He says, give us our daily bread. And when we make a request to be given something, that makes the one we're talking to the giver and us the receiver. It puts him in sort of the place of power and of supplier, and it puts us in the place of the needy person. It immediately attacks our pride. To kind of put ourselves in that spot, to regularly look to God and to ask him to give us something. Even something so mundane and so basic, especially that. God, we're asking you to give us something as basic as bread. It really attacks our pride to be this needy person. C.S. Lewis, in Mere Christianity, wrote a chapter called The Great Sin. It's all about pride. One of my favorite chapters in any book. Probably shows how much I really struggle with pride, which is why I like it so much. But here's what he says when we come to God about our pride. He says, in God, you come up against something which is in every respect immeasurably superior to yourself. Unless you know God as that, and therefore know yourself as nothing in comparison, you do not know God at all. As long as you are proud, you cannot know God. A proud man is always looking down on things and people, and of course, as long as you are looking down, you cannot see something that is above you. You know, Scripture teaches that God is the one who provides. He provides everything we need. He is the all-sufficient provider, and we are the needy children. That's the perspective, and yet Lewis, what he says is, unless we know God like that, we're not really talking to God when we pray. We don't even know him. And my guess is, for most of us, we've experienced God as this provider at some point in the past. And yet, probably on a daily basis, there's a tendency to forget God as provider. In an essay entitled "Why I Don't Pray Anymore," a publisher wrote an article that said, "I don't pray anymore. I've given it up for Lent." Also for Advent and Pentecost. How can I maintain, without lying, that God has a hand in this meal? So he's picturing, praying for your food. And apparently he thinks it's dishonest to pray for daily bread. After all, he earned the paycheck. He went to the grocery store. He untwisted the tie on the sandwich bag, and he made the sandwich. What did God have to do with it at all? In our pride, it's easy to view ourselves as the providers. The reality, and we'll only see the reality if we humble ourselves, is that we are utterly dependent on God's gracious provision every moment of every day. And yet he often provides through our work. Psalm 104, which was on the screens during one of the songs earlier, is a psalm that worships God as the provider. That's what the whole psalm is about. I want to show you a couple parts from the middle of that psalm. It says, he, meaning God, and look to what all that God provides. He makes grass grow for the cattle and plants for people to cultivate, bringing forth food from the earth, wine that gladdens the human hearts, oil to make their faces shine, and bread that sustains their hearts. The lions roar for their prey and seek their food from God. Then people go out to their work, to their labor until evening. All creatures look to you to give them their food at the proper time. Now, I just love this. Because right there in the same psalm, we see both sides of it. He's saying, yeah, you get up and you work. You work hard till evening. And in an age before electricity, that's as long as you could work. You work as long and as hard as you possibly can. But who does the providing? All creatures look to you to give them their food at the proper time. A commentator, Thomas Watson, he has a great summary. He says, the good things of life are gifts of God. He is the donor of all of our blessings. Give us not faith only, but food is a gift of God. Not daily grace only is from God, but daily bread. Every good thing comes from God. All we have is from the hand of God's royal bounty. We have nothing but from what he gives us out of his storehouse. We cannot have one bit of bread but from God. This is the truest reality, whether or not we actually feel this or not in any given day. So on the front end, this looks like asking for our daily needs. And on the back end, it looks like gratitude, thanking God for his provision. And it's funny, asking and saying thank you, those are the same sort of things we're working real hard every day to help our 2-year-old learn how to do. If you have a 2-year-old at home, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Why do we care so much that Bryce learns how to say please and ask for something and say thank you? It's not just so he'll have good manners. If he doesn't learn to ask for things, if he doesn't learn to say thank you for things, he's going to grow up to become a brat, right? Who thinks everyone in the world exists to meet his needs, which we kind of do right now. But this exact same reality is true for us in the spiritual sense. And Jesus, he knows that. He's tapping into that. If we don't daily come to God and ask him to meet our needs, and if we don't daily respond to him in gratitude, we will become spiritual brats. We will become proud. That's why Jesus tells us to ask God for our daily bread, to be thankful. This is a declaration of dependence. Humbly saying, God, provide what we need today. And this prayer is for both the poor and the rich. In fact, for those of us who have more than we need this prayer even more because we're the ones who are way more tempted to forget where our provision really comes from. To anyone in here who has more than they need, Moses would say to us the same thing he said to the Israelites on the verge of the promised land. He knew they were about to go in where they would have way more than they need, and they would be in great danger to forget. And look what he says to them. You may say to yourself in that coming day, my power and my strength have produced this wealth for me. He says, but remember Remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives the ability to produce wealth. It's a gift. That's why we say, give us today our daily bread, the most basic necessities. Let's hone in on another word. Let's hone in on this word daily. If the first word give really attacks our sense of pride and teaches us how to be humble, this word comes at a totally different aspect. Notice he doesn't say give us our yearly bread or give us our monthly or even our weekly. He's saying this should be something that's daily. If nothing else, this presupposes that we're going to talk to the Father on a daily basis. But really, Jesus is saying the focus in our prayers and even the focus in our entire lives should be on the needs of that day. If that's not our focus that day, we're going to get ourselves into a lot of trouble. I can remember, you might remember this when you were in school. I can remember being in college or even in grad school, and the first week of any semester, you get all your syllabus or your syllabi, right? You get them and you're looking over them, and every time that would happen, okay, I'd get the first class and I'd say, okay, wow, that's a lot, but okay, we're going to be all right. Then you do it again, and then you do it for all 5 of your classes, and I would get a severe case of syllabus shock every semester. It'd take me like a week to recover. Like, how in the world am I going to do all of this stuff in the next 3.5 months? But what was happening? I was letting all of these things in the future come and sort of affect me today. When in reality, none of those things were due today. I should have been the most free on that day. But I wasn't, because the needs of the future were in the present. And Jesus, he's speaking pretty strongly. He speaks really strongly against worry. Now, what do we call it when we do something that's the opposite of what Jesus commands us to do? What do we call that? We call that sin. And Jesus, he commands us not to worry. But often, I think we sort of excuse worry. We're like, I'm a worrier. And we sort of view that as a character trait. But listen to how strongly Jesus commands us not to worry. He says, so do not worry, saying, what shall we eat? What shall we drink? What shall we wear? For the pagans run after these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. And Jesus' cure for worry is to pray for the needs of today. And think about it. If God gives me everything I need for today, and he does that each day, how long could I survive like that? For the rest of my life. Too much dwelling on the future leads to worry. Too much dwelling on the past leads to regret. Jesus tells us to live in the only place we can live, which is in the present. Now, he's not saying we should never plan for the future. But we all know there's a difference between planning for the future and worrying about the future. Let me share a little bit where this connects with us personally. When we look into the future, in many ways there's a big question mark around the future of our son Nathan as he has Apert syndrome and sort of deals with that. We can look into the future and we don't really know what that's going to look like. Now, in reality, none of us know what the future is going to look like for ourselves or for any of our kids. But we are a lot more aware of it with him. And so I look into his future, and it can look really challenging. I have no idea, is he going to live with us for the rest of his life? Is he going to be in the place where he can hold a job and live on his own? We don't know. And if I spend too much time looking down that road, today gets really unbearable. But in the reality, God's saying, hey, take care of Nathan today. Love him well today, and you know what? Do that tomorrow. It's gonna take care of itself. If you had come up to me 5 years ago, and you had been a prophet, and said, hey, Johnny, here is what you and Jen are going to go through with Nathan in the next 5 years. Okay, here's the 12 surgeries and the 200 nights in the hospital, and you just sort of laid it all out for us, I think I would have quit. But we didn't have to deal with it all at once. It was something that we dealt with each day, and he gave us the grace we needed in each day for that. That is how he's asking us to do. God gives us grace for the day. And every day we need to draw on his grace. Listen to how D.L. Moody talks about this. He says, a man can no more take a supply of grace for the future than he can eat enough for the next 6 months. You can't eat enough for tomorrow today. This afternoon we may all try. We probably should, but will. We can't. We have to eat each day. We have to come to God for grace each day. Or you can't take sufficient air into his lungs at one time to sustain life for a week. No, we must draw upon God's boundless store of grace from day to day as we need it. And that is daily. Each of us need God's grace today for the challenges of today. We speak to him today. So if the word give spoke to our pride and that this is a humble stance, we come to our giver. The word daily, it speaks to our anxiety, that we come to him for our needs every day. The next word, the word bread, it speaks to us more about materialism. This word, it says, give us our daily bread. In Texas, we wish this said, give us our daily steak, right? Or I have a severe sweet tooth. We wish this said, give us our daily dessert. But it says bread, and as Becky wonderfully pointed out before, bread is a staple. I mean, bread is everywhere. And Jesus wasn't very sensitive to the gluten-intolerant people. Bread's everything. It's everywhere. It's a staple. This is not a word of extravagance. This is about sustenance. He's not talking about, he's talking about our needs, not our greeds. Our needs, not our wants. But because of our abundance, we often move from praying about our needs and we ask for our wants, if we're honest. Michael Horton, a commentator, he rewrote the Lord's Prayer, and he sort of put it in today's sort of felt needs, our cultural felt needs. I thought you'd get a kick out of this. Sort of seems a little sacrilegious, but it says, our audience, which art on earth, hallowed, or at least greatly esteemed, be our name. Our destiny come, our will be done in heaven as it is on earth. Give us today our daily indulgences. Help us to love and forgive ourselves just as we love and forgive others. Lead us not into difficulty, suffering, or unhappiness, but deliver us from our unmet needs. For ours is the kingdom, the power, the glory, at least here and now, which is all what really counts anyway. If we're honest, parts of that are uncomfortably close to the way many of us pray, right? Jesus asks us to pray for bread. And I think that has a way of bringing us back down to earth. By on a daily basis asking God and thanking him for our necessities, that has a way of curbing our sort of needs and wants that can kind of go way out of bounds. It can also remind us to be content with what we have. Jesus isn't saying that we need to live at the poverty line. You know, when we come to material things, there's actually two sort of equal and opposite errors. And wisdom finds a road between them. Listen to Proverbs 30. He says, give me neither poverty nor riches, but give me only my daily bread. Otherwise, I may have too much and disown you and say, who's the Lord? Or I may become poor and steal and so dishonor the name of my God. You see what he's saying? There's a great danger in both sides. If you have too much, just like we said earlier, you're going to be tempted to forget who your provider really is. You'll live sort of this independent life, separate from God, full of pride and arrogance. But being poor is not the solution either, because then you might be tempted to steal and you'll dishonor God's name that way. Do you notice what he says is sort of the road between both extremes? It's to say, give me today my daily bread. Exactly what Jesus said. Say, pray, God, what I need today. And so the word there is bread, but I think he's saying pray for what you need. Well, what else do we need? Sure, we need bread, we need food, we need shelter, we need clothing, but we have more than just physical needs. We need encouragement, we need friendship, we need patience to parent our kids, we need energy and skill to do our jobs, we need tenderness and grace towards our spouses. Jesus is saying, ask God for your needs for the day. And it's close to impossible to follow Jesus in America and not get sort of wrapped up in materialism. I mean, the line between a need and a want gets so blurred. If we watch enough HGTV, we think all of a sudden, man, it's a need to have granite countertops. I can't make food on these old countertops. And there's nothing wrong with granite countertops. That's not really what I'm saying, but let's call it what it is. It's not a need. This praying for bread can bring us back down to earth. We pray for what we need. And the truth is that God has blessed all of us with way more than we need. You know, Jesus' definition of abundance, if you know that you're going to have food tomorrow, today, you have abundance. All of us have abundance. And when God blesses us with abundance, that comes with a great responsibility. I tried to figure out how long could I go if I never received another paycheck. How long could I go? Well, the first thing, we'd eat through the pantry. Well, that'd probably last us a week or two. Then we'd use the bank account and just kind of buy food from that, and that could probably last a few months. Then we could start selling things. I could go a long time before I wouldn't have food on the table. God has blessed all of us with abundance, and with that comes great responsibility, which comes to the last word. The last words in this phrase, give us today our daily bread. It doesn't say give me my daily bread. It's give us our. It's the corporate prayer. And I think Jesus did this intentionally to get us to move just beyond our sort of needs to help us think about the needs of other people. Jesus knows that all of us, in our sinful natures, we have a healthy dose of selfishness, right? All of us do. No one has to tell us to look out for ourselves. We do that quite naturally. And so Jesus tells us to pray these plural words because he wants us to lift up our eyes off of our own situation, to see those around us, to say, God, as you meet my needs, meet the needs of those around me as well. And we need to be turned outward. Because if we're not, there's enough selfishness inside each one of us. Combine that with the fact that we live in this materialistic world, and that's a recipe for disaster. Many of you will remember the name Jim Bakker. He was the former head of the PTL Christian television network, and he was a huge proponent of the health and wealth gospel, or the health and wealth heresy, as I like to call it. And you may remember that he went to jail. He defrauded thousands of his contributors. He was sort of skimming off the top, cooking the books, so that he became wealthy off the people supporting his ministry. And so he fell hard, and he went to jail. And as God often does, God worked on him at the bottom, as he does with many of us. And shortly after he got out of jail, he wrote a book entitled I Was Wrong. And I was reading a portion of that this week. Listen to what he said about his time in prison and what happens to lots of us when we have more than we need. He said, during my time in prison, I observed something that it seemed to me had gotten nearly every inmate into trouble. The underlying reason why some of the bankers, Wall Street businessmen, doctors, and others are in prison is because of something that they did to get more money. I realized that 60% of the inmates who were in prison for some drug-related crime, most of them were not in because of an addiction to drugs, but because of an addiction to the drug of money. It was their insatiable desire for more money that led them to selling drugs in the first place, not a desire to ruin someone else's life or to get them hooked. This addiction to having more and having more. Now, maybe that addiction in each of us hasn't landed us in prison, but the conditions are sort of perfect for every one of us. Our selfishness, this materialistic culture, to make all of us just keep wanting more and more and more. And one of the surefire ways to break that addiction is to practice generosity. That cuts the legs right out from under it. It's to give it away. When God gives us more and more, it's so we can use more and more for his kingdom. And so we make it regular, we make it consistent, and we give to God's work. And then also we give spontaneously as we see different needs pop up. We sort of respond in the moment to those needs. And every time we give, we're going to feel it. But that's breaking that addiction, that power that money wants to have over us. To pray this prayer sincerely, give us our daily bread, we have to be willing to see that God wants us to be the answer to that prayer for someone else. When God gives me more than I need, it's so that I can help someone who has less than they need and be the answer to their prayer. Someone once asked John Piper, is it a sin to make a big salary? He said, no, the issue is not how much a person makes. Big industry and big salaries are a fact of our times. They are not necessarily evil. The evil is being deceived into thinking a $100,000 salary must be accompanied by a $100,000 lifestyle. Oh, that was really well said. You know, everyone around us maxes out their paycheck. And most people actually more so, and live with a decent amount of debt. And if we just take our cues from everyone around us in culture, we'll do the exact same. We'll let our lifestyle creep as our income creeps. But if we take our cues from Jesus and we live under our means, well, then we'll get to be a part of God's provision for other people and for his kingdom. One last quote from Basil the Great. This is way back in the 4th century. I found this really convicting. The bread that is spoiling in your house belongs to the hungry. The shoes that are mildewing under your bed belongs to those who have none. The clothes stored away in your trunk belong to those who are naked. When we're on the receiving end of God's abundant blessing, we rejoice, we give thanks, and then we also realize God has a purpose for that. It's so we can be a blessing to others. Give us today our daily bread. It's a very simple prayer. But when we turn it on its side, we realize this prayer hits so many deep parts of us. This hits our pride and our humility. This word give, that we reach out to a giver. We put ourselves in the needy place before God. It's a prayer that we pray daily. This is a dependent prayer, a declaration of dependence, to stay in the moment. It's a prayer that teaches us contentment. We have way more than we need. God, we can be content today in the way you've provided. And it's a prayer that teaches us to be generous, to see the world around us, the people around us, and how we can be a part of meeting their needs. And it seemed only fitting to me that we should sort of end by just giving us each some time to respond to our Father, to the one who's provided for us. A chance to say thank you, a chance to say, God, here are the needs I have today that I'm looking for your grace. Say, Lord, who do you want me to meet the needs of those around me? So just take a minute, and then I'll close us in prayer.